hard as you try. Mired in blood, soaking in the blood of Catholic peasants. Part of the potential into which the church can grow. That we hear the gospel in its language. The gates of hell will not prevail the doors of the church. All the hordes of demons coming. The monsters left the dark spaces under our bed. Our nightmares to come out into the open. Icon of Pentecost, cosmic image. There they are, the degenerate ones. There they are, the monsters. We move out, we handle the procession out into the world. Marvin 2mørVs is here. Those who know, he did a whole opera on a talk that I gave on the Pentecost for the zombie apocalypse. You can find that on YouTube. It's amazing. Yeah, he did this whole musical thing.
I'm just thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be a part of this. And I want to thank you, Jonathan. Is he ready to come out? Please say yes, because I'm about to cry again. I want to introduce Jonathan Pageau. This is absolutely crazy to me. Just being back there and seeing people come in and, just seeing some of the people that I know that I've talked to on the podcast all of a sudden crash into each other in one space. Seeing people that I've talked to on Zoom, that I've answered questions on Q&As, that I've just encountered online. It's surreal that it's possible that now we're all here in the same room. And so, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. It's very humbling to me to see that you're here. I want to say a few things. Some of you might know that a few weeks ago, things were not doing so well for me or for the Symbolic World Press. A lot of bad things happened. It felt like everything was going to explode. And around me appeared this amazing team that was already there. But all these people really helped to bring things together. And some of the people here in this room had the idea. They said, maybe if we do the online tickets, because all of a sudden we announced online tickets, we thought maybe we could actually save Symbolic World Press. And that's exactly what happened. It's been amazing to see people just come to our help in that way. And so really the profits for all of this is really going to go to help us continue to put out the books that we want to put out, to continue the things we want to do. So I'm very grateful to all the people that have helped. Some people that you know, some people that you don't. I'm going to name a few people because it's just important for me to do so. Everybody knows how much Richard Rowland helped me while we were there, and I'm very grateful that he's here with me now. Someone you don't know who's back there, his name is Ray. He runs Residence with his friend Sean. It was crazy what they did to help us. Topher, who's sitting out here, you'll meet him. He was astounding to help us as well. save Symbolic World Press. And that's exactly what happened. You know, it's been amazing to see people come to our help in that way. There's Lisa that some of you know. She was doing everything from South Africa. She's been an amazing help. And of course, many, many more. Of course, Tyler and his team organizing this tonight. And my wife who's here, Marti, and my family who supported me through all of that. So thank you to all of you. Very important for me to say that. I also want to thank the clergy, because I noticed that there's clergy here. I'm very grateful for that you came here today. I didn't expect there to be that many clergy. I'm very grateful that you came. This is going to be crazy. The people that are going to speak, it was actually difficult to choose our speakers because there's a lot of people that I would have liked to come speak, but we chose people that we felt would go well together and there'd be some really wild discussions and some really wild moments. And I'm seeing that already John he's already outdone everything. I don't think we can get crazier than John's introduction. Save Symbolic World Press. And that's exactly what happened. You know, it's been amazing to see people come to our help in that way to save Symbolic World Press. Exciting for me to have you here is for all of you to meet each other. That sounds like the weird thing, but you know, we talk about, I tell people to go to church, and you know what that means. It means, of course, go to church, but also we need to meet each other in real life. We need to see each other's faces. We need to be able to exchange, to have real life encounters. And Neil, who is one of the people that saved the symbolic world also in the last few weeks, he's the one who suggested we do this. And I cannot believe that we're going to hear Dirt for Robins play tonight. And so, meet each other, read each other, get to know each other, form networks, form partnerships. Bunch of artists here looking for other artists to collaborate with. They're musicians, there are all kinds of people. And so thank you for coming. And here we go. We're gonna try to see how we can recover the cosmic image. That I have been intimating, that I've been suggesting in the past few years is the idea that in a way, the notion of the end of the world, or the idea of what's presented in Revelation, the way that Scripture talks about it, of that great day, that final day of the coming of the Son of Man, all these types of images that are described in Scripture, whether it's in the prophecies of the Old Testament, whether it's Christ himself speaking, or whether it is the great images that we find in the book of Revelation. One of the things that I've always wanted to intimate is that although there is a way in which that is the end, right? It is the culmination of the entire cosmos. That is what it's pointing to. But there's also a way in which it is the permanent reality that we live in every day. And it's tricky to talk about that on the outside, you could say, because people think you're crazy. But luckily now we're on the inside. And so hopefully I won't have to hold back. And I'll be able to say the thing in a way that I hope most of you will be actually of modern science moving past World War II into the contemporary world has been the problem of consciousness, the problem of the relationship between complexity and consciousness. Right, we see it happening in every field, whether it is the question that you see in quantum physics, but that problem of complexity and of identity is one which you see happen in every field at the same time. You know, and that's why all of a sudden we're in this moment where people like Jordan Peterson, where like John Vervaeke, Bernardo Castro, all these Ian McGilchrist, there are all these thinkers that are kind of weirdly appearing at the same time, and are all kind of talking about the same thing with a little different tack. And in some ways it's trying to solve this problem, which is the problem of the relationship, between the way the world is, that relationship between that and meaning, and the relationship between that and consciousness. Everybody trying to figure out what is going on. What is going on? What is going on? Type reflexes. So you'll hear people, they'll ask me this question all the time. They'll say, the symbolism that you talk about, is it a symbolism that exists really in the world? Or is it a symbolism that humans are projecting onto the world? There are all these thinkers that are kind of weirdly appearing at the same time, and are all kind of talking about the same thing with a little different tack. And in some ways it's trying to solve this problem, which is the problem of the relationship between the way the world is, that relationship between that and meaning, and the relationship between that and consciousness. Everybody trying to figure out what is going on. What is going on? What is going on? The symbolism that you talk about, is it a symbolism that exists really in the world? Or is it a symbolism that humans are projecting onto the world? Right? That's a reasonable question. You see that even, I'm actually reading, at the behest of Jordan Peterson, I'm reading Ion. And in Ion, you get a little bit of that question or that problem. It's like, here are these cosmic symbolisms that we can perceive. Are they imaged on our psyche, or are they imaging our psyche? What's the relationship of causality? It is the notion of the heavenly man. It is the notion of the Son of Man. It is the notion of the heavenly man. It is the notion of the Son of Man. What is the relationship of causality between the person, or the human, or man, and all these patterns that we notice in the cosmos? And I think that one of the things that the image of the Son of Man is doing in Revelation, he is answering that question. I mean, obviously not directly. The texts aren't trying to answer that question that we're posing ourselves right now. But what I think is that in that imagery, there is a key to a solution to this problem. And the image is exactly this one. It is the notion of the heavenly man. It is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion of the heavenly man. It is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion that in a mysterious way, let's say even if we're not Christian, like in a mysterious way, there is a connection between divinity and man. Like, what is that connection? There is a connection between the patterns that come down from heaven and man himself. So you can kind of see that maybe even the ancient world was a way of working that out. I'm not sure. The reason why that gods were anthropomorphic, trying to kind of find what is the relationship of causality. But in this image of the Son of Man, we find this notion that in some ways the world is filtered, maybe even originates through man. But that sounds weird though. Sounds weird because it doesn't mean that it originates through me. Does it mean that it originates just regular people? Well, the answer to that seems to be no. It doesn't seem to also be that. It seems to be something else. It seems to be the notion of the heavenly man. Is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion of the heavenly man. Is the notion of the Son of Man. It is the notion of the heavenly man. Is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion of the heavenly man. Is the notion of the Son of Man. Seems to be all that towards which man seems to culminate, right? All that which is good in man, maybe, all that which we have in common, something about that, and it seems to culminate into this image of the heavenly man. And it seems to culminate into this image of the heavenly man. In that imagery, there is a key to a solution to this problem. And the image is exactly this one. The notion of the heavenly man is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion of the heavenly man is the notion of the Son of Man. It is the notion of the heavenly man. Is the notion of the Son of Man. The notion of the heavenly man is the notion of the Son of Man. Christian tradition, there's very strange things that actually become, to me, very understandable once you start to think that way. You know, if you look at, when I started studying Christian iconography, I hit against very particular images, which is that in the Orthodox tradition, when we show the creation of the world, we show Jesus Christ creating the world. What a weird thing to do. right? Shouldn't we show God creating the world, right? Like Michelangelo, you know, the image I love so much. No, we don't do that. We show Jesus Christ creating the world. And then we also do the same. For all the theophanies of the Old Testament, we show this image of Jesus Christ. That is the culmination of all these prophetic images kind of moving towards that one image, an eschatological image. And obviously Jesus wasn't walking around dressed like a Roman senator, you know, with like ornaments on his vestment and like a toga around. He wasn't dressed like a Roman senator, but we dress him in our iconography. We dress him like an emperor would dress. And so what is going on? How is this all happening? And it's pointing towards this image of the Son of Man. It's pointing towards this image, this glorious image, that if you go into an Orthodox church that has a dome and you stand in the middle and you look up, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see this image of a man dressed in glorious clothing with a beard and a book and his hand out. That is the culmination of all these prophetic images kind of moving towards that one image, an eschatological image. That is the culmination of all these prophetic images kind of moving towards that one image, an eschatological image, an image of the end of man, right? An image of the end of the world. An eschatological image. An image of the end of man. An image of the end of the world. The end doesn't necessarily just mean the place where things fall apart. There's another meaning for the word end, and it's in this sense that I'm talking about it. It's the end as in it's the purpose, right? It's the end as it's the culmination of all things. It's that towards which all is pointing to. And that is the mystery, right? It's like, this end, this purpose, this image of the man who is standing in between, you know, the transcendent, infinite, invisible, and the world that manifests itself. And to me, honestly, like that is actually, even if we're not, like you weren't Christian, it's not, like, took it from a very secular point of view, It's a very interesting position to hold, even to solve some of the problems of complexity. Yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is a world without that anchor of pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? And the problem of this question of consciousness and of how consciousness interacts with the phenomena in the world, because once you have this image, we have this image of the end of man, man as such, or man as man is related to heaven. Maybe to say it that way. It's like the way in which man is manifesting the patterns of heaven, that's it. That's the point where it all comes together. And so from that point, the questions that we were asking at the outset, the question of, is meaning a projection of the human psyche? Or is meaning already in the world? That question becomes, you can say yes to both, actually. You can just say yes. Did man create the gods? Well, you mean the one up there? Then the answer is yes. Yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is a world without that anchor, pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? Yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is a world without that anchor, pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? Right? Did man project meaning onto the structures of the world? Well, if it's the man of there, if it's the man in the sense of all that towards which humanity points to in its highest, then the answer is yes. But are those patterns real in the world? The answer is also yes. Are they objective? Are they just subjective to the idiosyncratic individual? Well, no, they're completely objective, right? They're exactly the world itself. You know, atheists like Sam Harris, they're funny. They come close to it sometimes. They'll say things like, it's so wonderful that now the universe has produced a way for it to become conscious of itself. And I just want to go, yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is this world without consciousness? What are you talking about? What is a world without that anchor of pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? Yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is a world without that anchor, pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? Yes, 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 yes. Now don't stop. Now let's keep going. What is a world without that anchor, pattern holding, and that anchor of pattern making, and that anchor of participation in pattern? What world are you talking about? There's no surprise that this would appear in the end. The idea that this happens at the end. At the end of all things appears this image the fullness of the Son of Man, the fullness of the entire purpose, entire way in which all humanity points, that it would appear at the end and that it would appear as a judge. Because that's actually how it works. That's actually how it works for us. Now, if you think of the end, especially if you think of it, like I said, not just as just the end as the last chronological point, but as the reason, the purpose towards which I'm moving when I'm doing things, then you realize that's actually makes a lot of sense. Think about it. You know, I love to use the sports team example. It's the best example. Think about it as a sports team. That's how it works. That is, once you know the purpose of the basketball game, those purposes are held in men or in humans. They're held in humans, and that tends to move towards a point, because some will shine and will appear as embodying, let's use the word incarnating, the end of that field. And they'll become like shining stars, become like little bright lights that judge everybody else. They don't even do it on purpose. They just become a standard. That's what a standard is. A standard is that by which all other things are judged. And so this image becomes the image by which things coalesce towards their identity. And this is what's so impressive. This is what to me is exciting. One of the most exciting things is that it is a personal thing. It's actually a personal thing. It's not the apersonal conceptual structure that a lot of the scientific world wants to present itself. It actually happens in people. We find our examples in people. And then we aim towards the purposes we have with people guiding us into them. That's how, even like tech companies, that's how it works. Think of the role that people like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk are playing. They are playing the role of these characters that are pushing the purpose. And everybody sees it coalesce into these people, see them as models to follow and things to get in line behind. And that's how the world works. But then, you could scale it down. You know that. You can scale it down into things. It's also true of all things. Anything that has an identity, that purpose, the reason why you know that it's one thing in the first place, will act as a judge. Just for good old time's sakes, we'll do it with the water. I wish I had a glass. This is exactly the case. And so, because I know what a bottle is, because I know what its end is, then that end judges the bottle. But the thing is, it's like you think, that's weird. It doesn't sound, because I don't see the bottle judging the bottle. That's because it's filtered through the Son of Man. That's because it's actually filtered through human consciousness. And that is not only fine, it seems that that's actually inevitable. It seems that there's actually no other way to think of the world outside of those parameters. And when people do, like you'll see it, like some people will say that they are, but they have this weird blind side. They're blindsided. They kind of think that they're outside the system when they're doing that. They don't realize that they have to embody. They always have to be incarnate. So what's fascinating to me about that is, again, that image of the Son of Man in Revelation. one thing missing. There's a little thing missing in the image of the Son of Man. Not, but you'll see what I mean. What I mean is that there's this glorious image, right? And that we can kind of get. We understand that this glorious image, the chief, think of the team captain, right? Or the president or the king, or these people that are like Elon Musk that runs these massive companies and are kind of like these examples that we follow. That we can kind of get. And that kind of looks like, it kind of looks like the old gods a little bit, these kind of tough guys, these really, more than human characters that are driving the world and they're making us follow them. But the image at the end of Revelation is different. There are two images in that final moment when the heavenly Jerusalem appears. You have this image of the Son of Man, right? The glorious judge, but also this image of the Lamb, right? The Lamb that is sacrificed before the foundation of the world. And I think those two together, that's it. That's the solution. That's the solution to complexity. Is those two images together. Is to know that one is the other. And the Son of Man is the Son of Man because he is the Lamb that was sacrificed. Right? That the image of the glorious one is glorious because he is the one who was crucified. And I'm telling you, it's a technical thing. I don't want you to, I always, I'm afraid of woo, so this isn't like a woo thing. You realize it's actually how the world works. The Son of Man is the Son of Man because he is the Lamb that was sacrificed. The image of the glorious one is glorious because he is the one who was crucified. The Son of Man is the Son of Man because he is the Lamb that was sacrificed. The image of the glorious one is glorious because he is the one who was crucified. Which is that the problem of this notion of identity is that we're just be strong, right? This image of Zeus. It's a good example. Because what does Zeus do? Zeus rapes a bunch of women. That's what Zeus does. Right? It's like, that's the problem with identity. That's the problem with the idea of just the glorious identity. Of if we put all our confidence in the man, in the president, in the one, in the leader, we have this problem, which is that they become little tyrants. And that can be true, again, at every level of reality, right? It can be true of anything that you encounter. It's not only people. We often have idols, we have idols, we idolize all kinds of things, whether it's money, whether it's our car, whether it's, whatever. But that's that problem. The problem of this identity that is just this glorious thing. The Son of Man is the Son of Man because he is the Lamb that was sacrificed. The image of the glorious one is glorious because he is the one who was crucified. The Son of Man is the Son of Man because he is the Lamb that was sacrificed. The image of the glorious one is glorious because he is the one who was crucified. Idolize all kinds of things, whether it's money, whether it's a car, whether it's, whatever. But that's that problem. It's the problem of this identity that is just this glorious thing. But it seems like identity is sacrifice. It seems to be the case. The Son of Man is the for identity to exist, it has to give itself up. First of all, necessarily. For anything to have being, it seems like it has to give itself up to higher participations, right? Imagine a steering wheel. Steering wheel has to give itself to the car, right? Having a fetishized steering wheel hanging on my wall, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. In order for it to do what it's supposed to do, in order for it to be what it's supposed to be, it has to give itself up. The giving up and the giving down. The giving up and the giving down. And again, that's true about everything. That's actually true even about people that we admire, the heroes. They have to do it at least a little, or else even their position as leaders could not be held. In order for a team captain to be the team captain, he has to give himself up to the purpose of the team, to the reason why the team is there. If he only wants to shine and doesn't care about the team winning the game, then he's not going to shine. Everybody's going to boo him, even if he's an amazing player. But if he doesn't play towards the purpose, if he doesn't give himself up to a higher purpose, then it doesn't work. And then the other mystery, that it seems like identities have to give themselves down. The giving up and the giving down. The giving up and the giving down. Identities have to give themselves down. They also have to give themselves to the things that they bring together. And what I mean by that is that there has to be a place for flexibility, right? And so again, the team captain is a good example. Because the team captain needs his team, he can't win the basketball game on his own. He has to give himself, he has to leave room, he has to open up space for the things that he gathers together to have their own existence, to participate in the whole. So you have this image of the sacrificing up and the sacrificing down, the giving up and the giving 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 down. So you have this image of the sacrificing up and the sacrificing down, the giving up and the giving down. And I think that that's really the strange key about the crucifixion. And what's interesting is that you realize that the judgment, right, the last judgment, this image of the Son of Man in glory at the end of time that's judging the entire world, is already happening on the cross. Because on the cross, Christ has two thieves next to him. And there's one thief that recognizes the good in Christ. And there's one thief that only sees himself and only says, well, save me. Like, why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. Save me. Why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. And so already on the cross, there's this image of the Lamb that is judging the world. And it's very fascinating to think that it's all kind of contained in that one story. crucifixion, I always tell you, will always wreck you because there's too much in it. But that is definitely an aspect that is there in the crucifixion. And so the last judgment seems to be gathered in, or some aspect of it seems to be there already to show us that this is how reality works. Save me. Why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. Save me. Why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. And so the reason why someone is the best leader is because that person empties themselves into the purpose of what they're doing. Let's say a president who gives himself for his country, who gives his will, his intention towards the good of his country, but that also will give himself to his people and will open up the space for his people to be able to participate in the thing that he is leading. Save me. Why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. Save me. Why don't you save us? Save yourself and save us. A very fascinating thing to realize because it applies very much to the problem of symbolism. Because I have people ask me, again, they always ask me, the symbolism that you see, right? Is it there? Are you making it up? Are you just projecting it onto the space? And the true symbolism, the one that actually holds, has to be seen from the human perspective. There's no other way to do it. So you have to stand in your body, you have to stand in your being, and you have to look at things through that. Actually, it's the most natural thing in the world, actually, but we've been strangely twisted in the past centuries that we struggle to be able to do it, but it's actually the most natural thing in the world. And if we do that, if we just stand and we experience the world as a person doing normal things, going through their life without all the levels of abstraction that have been added to our experience, the symbolic structures will appear to us very, very intuitively. As you know, I didn't have the guts to do it, but my brother spent a lot of time doing things like learning to bake, learning to weave, learning to do all these crazy, very simple things to kind of get back into a mode where you're directly connected to the world and you don't live in these abstractions. And that has been one of the keys to his great symbolic insight, has been just entering into that space and taking the time to actually do things simply. But if we can do that, if we can understand the consequences of what I'm saying, which is the notion that meaning is filtered through human consciousness, and that's okay, and that's actually not a problem, and it solves a lot of the problem that people are asking themselves. And everything flips, and we actually can recover, honestly, we can recover all the old stories. can get all of them back. Because it means that our experience in the world is primary, and the abstractions that science gives us, they're wonderful to their purpose. They're wonderful to the reason why we would care about those things. You know, like making cars go faster or making planes fly or whatever. You know, make sure satellites don't bump into each other. All those things are amazing. They're really important. But they're necessarily secondary to that first conscious place that's standing in the world and looking out and experiencing things in front of you. And in that world, heaven is up, earth is down, the sun comes up in the east, goes down in the west, stars move through the skies, seasons follow their course, and that is the most real thing. That is the most real thing. Heaven is up, earth is down, the sun comes up in the east, goes down in the west, stars move through the skies, the seasons follow their course, and that is the most real thing. And that's what all the old stories are made of. And we have to be brave enough. We have to be brave enough to stand and say, when someone tells you that the story in Genesis is not a scientific story, we have to be brave and stable enough to say, you're right. It actually is before the scientific story. It actually accounts for a scientific method. The story in Genesis 1 holds in its structure the means by which we can do science. But no, you're right, it's not a scientific story. But you need it because you wouldn't be doing science without it. You wouldn't be able to do science if you weren't able to identify a category and then evaluate it and see whether or not it is good. That comes before everything, right? That's how it starts. Right? God says, he creates, he names, he separates, and then he looks and he sees that it is good. And it's super interesting because this is even really interesting in terms of the process. Again, the problem of emergence and of top-down constraint. He says, let the earth bring forth earth bring forth things that have an identity. And then he looks and he says that it is good. That in the first chapter of Genesis is quite astounding. Because God doesn't name every single species of plant that you can imagine. He doesn't have to do that. He says, let the earth bring forth plants with their seed. He says, let the earth bring forth things that have an identity that perpetuates itself. That's all he's saying. Saying, let the earth bring forth things that have an identity, that identity perpetuate itself. And then he looks and he says that it is good. And that's how it works, folks. Right? Even in terms of evolutionary process, that's how it works. You have variation and potential, and then you have names, categories, bind them, and you have a way to judge whether or not they participate well in that identity, right? That's what a scientist does. Scientist has a theory, and his theory necessarily has to look at a specific slice of phenomena, right? If you're studying hippopotami, you're not studying the moon or whatever. You have to study a certain category of phenomena, and then you have the theory, and then you say, bring forth facts within this constraint. And then you have to judge if those facts are good. What does it mean that they're good? It just means that they fit with the theory in this case. The difference between us and God is that God doesn't make a mistake. We can have a bad theory and then realize that the facts and the theory don't fit together. He says, let the earth bring forth plants with their seed. He says, let the earth bring forth things that have an identity. In Genesis 1, obviously because it's the source of all things, we don't have that same problem. We just have God giving the constraint and then judging the variability and saying that is good. And so that is the confidence that we can have. And I really think that we can advance with that confidence to know that the experience of the world is first. He says, let the earth bring forth plants with their seed. He says, let the earth bring forth things that have an identity. And then he looks and he says that it is good. This image of heaven above and earth below, that comes first, and it accounts for all the other things. We can get to the other things, and they're important, and they're wonderful, but they are not sufficient. And it's the same with the image of Revelation, and this image of the Son of Man, and the final revelation. It is a powerful image of the end of what God started in Genesis 1. It is the final formation of that entire process of creation. Added human participation in the end. times you watch my video, but that's the image of the heavenly Jerusalem. That's what it is. Heavenly Jerusalem has the Garden of Eden in the center, it has human making on the edges, and it has all this variability. So it has all the nations, all the kings of all the nations come up to the city, and they offer their crown, they offer their identity, they offer their glory to the Son of Man and to the Lamb. It is the final formation of that entire process of creation. Added human participation in the end. It is the final formation of that entire process of creation. Added human participation in the end. And if that happens, then all things exist in this balance. And that's how it works, right? That's what the basketball players do. They do the same thing as the heavenly Jerusalem. Don't clip that, by the way. That would be horrible. But they do the same thing because they come into the purpose and they offer their little sacrifice in order to be able to participate in this higher purpose. And at the top is that purpose, often embodied by the coach, in their case, or by their team captain, in a person, actually. It always has to be in a person, and then that person will judge if it is good, and will accept the sacrifice if it's an appropriate sacrifice. Will accept the gift if it's an appropriate gift that can participate in the identity of the thing that it is. It is the final formation of that entire process of creation. Added human participation in the end. It is the final formation of that entire process of creation. Added human participation in the end. I know it's a lot of stuff that you probably heard me say before, but I wanted to try to bring it together into one image. And mostly for all of you that are here, to really, the future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. And I hope that by now you can see it. When I started 6 years ago, when Jordan and I started talking about this several years ago, I know some people could have said, what are they talking about? Like, what is this? What is going on? What are they talking about? The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. But now you have literal, let me use that word, like literal human AIs that are actual embodied ideologies, embodied idols that are supremely powerful, that are running through our agency, running through our wills, affecting the wills of our children. So we know that the gods are back. They were always kind of there, but now they are coming back with no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. Some will have a certain clarity that other people don't understand. We also have a certain protection. It's all very fascinating. Everybody's fascinated. That's always the problem with the occultists. They just are fascinated. They're like, oh, things happen. It's like, oh, there's actual agency. I can call up this agency and then it manifests itself. Woo! Isn't that amazing? It's like, yeah, until it kills you, right? Until it eats your soul. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. And so, but now, like I said, we have this accelerated moment where all of this is happening very fast. And some of the patterns that would run through civilization in the ancient world over 100 years, over 200 years, and the people had the capacity to see it and call them gods or call them these different transpersonal beings. Now, technology is speeding that up so that even the dumbest, most materialist person, very soon, or maybe they're denying it to themselves still, but they will have to see that the future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. But they will have to see that that they're coming, and it's happening, and that it's running through us. And we have to have ways to deal with this stuff in a way that is appropriate. And the solution is the Son of Man. Right? The solution is that all things point to the good that they can point to, giving up to higher goods, to higher goods, to higher goods. That really is the only solution. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. It is difficult in a world that's run only by financial gain and by massive corporate interests. That's difficult. But it is nonetheless the truth. It is the only way for things to stack up properly. And in the world of that AI that's coming towards us very fast, it is also the only solution, is that if those tools are going to be part of our world, we have to have ways for them to, this is going to sound the weirdest thing ever, but we need to find ways for them to worship the Son of Man. And I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's possible. But what I'm saying is that that is really the only solution. We'd have to see how it's possible for them to be submitted to the highest ideal that we can imagine, which is both the glorious King, but also self-sacrificial Lamb at the same time. So I want to thank everybody for coming to this, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm really excited. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future is symbolic. There's no doubt about that. The future